Hey guys, Marcus McDaniel here. This is my reading week 5 video for Physics 2211. So this week we talked more about contact forces, like electric force, normal force, friction force. We talked about how to determine forces from motion, and we also talked about static and dynamic equilibrium. So these are mainly the main topics: learning how to find static and dynamic equilibrium, using like electric force, net force, all that stuff. So some of the past knowledge that I had was more on the static and dynamic equilibrium section. Because to me, I've always known static equilibrium as like a static hold. So that's like where you hold something in a rest position, not a rest position, but you just hold something without moving it. And so this is kind of similar to the concept where it has a velocity of 0 and it's constant, so it's not moving. So the way I envision it is like, so if you take your hands and you try to just pull them apart, just interlock your fingers, and pull, that's a static hold. Or push against your hands, that's a static hold, because you have force going both ways, but like the net force is 0, F net still equals 0 and it's constant. Now whereas the dynamic equilibrium is the exact opposite. So that's moving something with constant velocity that is not 0. So that's something that's in constant motion. So now stuff that I learned, mainly everything else, like the electric force. I was learning more about how to define static equilibrium as well as dynamic equilibrium. So like electric forces, I learned about like contact, like physical contact, the agents that are in contact, the agents that are at a distance. So like electric force is like a no contact force, so that means there's no contact involved. And so one of the more difficult ideas was remembering how to go through remember all the steps for finding the equilibriums. So like, I get confused mainly like with like when the trig portion comes into these problems. So like the f, or the magnitude of f, sine, theta, all that stuff. It's a little tricky. So I've been trying to search up YouTube. I've really been going back to the edX videos, trying to just watch them again to see if it will click a second time, or just kind of go through the practice problems, maybe try it on my own without the help of the video. Even though it's the same problem, I feel like just doing it over and over will eventually, help me get the steps. But I think trig is a big portion of math as well, in calculus, which is in turn related to my major. So that's a section of this class that I need to try to get ingrained in my head, because that'd be very important for me in the future. As well, it's pretty interesting being able to find these different forces, forces that aren't moving but they still have forces, or forces that are moving and have force. But yeah, so basically, so determining forces from motion was a bigger video, as well as determining static and dynamic equilibrium, because there were examples about pulling a box across a table, as we're now, the table has friction force, so that's going to affect the situation somehow. So basically mainly most of it was computational. So I mean, me already knowing static and dynamic equilibrium, I kind of had an idea of what I was looking for, but the calculations of how to get there are completely new to me. So that's basically the main ideas for this week. Some of the stuff that I learned and what I've already had an idea about. So if you're just struggling on some of these topics, I would suggest going back into the edX videos maybe a couple more times, trying them on your own, because sometimes that helps, just going through and seeing it twice. Or just, maybe YouTube or online somewhere else, or a friend. So that's week 5, and we'll just get ready for week 6.